Family betrayal cuts deepest when it happens in silence. My name is Eliza Bennett, and I used to believe that loyalty still meant something in our house until the night I heard my own father and stepmother whispering about killing my grandfather. It was 11:47 p.m., and the lights in the hallway cast long shadows across the marble floor. I had come downstairs for a glass of water when I heard Lydia's voice, low and sharp. "By midnight, it's done." He signed the papers. No turning back. Then my father's reply, cold, calculated. "He's lived long enough. Make it look peaceful." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. They were plotting to get rid of the man who built everything we had. But while they thought I was asleep upstairs, I pressed record on my phone, because that night, their plan became mine. Our family name Bennett carried weight in North Carolina, the kind of name that opened doors, silenced rooms, and made people smile, even when they secretly envied us. My grandfather, Henry Bennett, built the empire from nothing. He was a war veteran who came home with nothing but grit and a head full of numbers. 30 years later, he owned half the city real estate, investments, Bennett Financial Group. People called him the last honest billionaire. To me, he wasn't a symbol. He was simply Grandpa, the man who taught me how to play chess, who made cocoa every Christmas morning, who once told me, "Eliza, money doesn't change people, it just shows who they really are." He was right. When Grandma died, Dad changed. He married Lydia, a woman half his age, with perfect posture and eyes that never smiled. Lydia had a way of making everyone feel slightly off balance. She was always too polite, too thoughtful, too controlled. My father said she made him feel young again. I called it something else. Dangerous. Within a year, she had inserted herself into every corner of the family business. She was always in Grandpa's ear, reminding him to rest, to sign things, to delegate. "You shouldn't burden yourself with details, Henry," she'd purr. Grandpa would nod, half distracted, trusting. The first time I realized something wasn't right was last Thanksgiving. Grandpa wanted to host dinner at the estate like always, but Lydia insisted on catering everything, choosing the guest list herself. When I asked why, she smiled in that perfect way of hers and said, "Family gatherings are exhausting for someone his age. I'm only protecting him." Protecting him. That was her favorite word. By Christmas, she had hired a new private nurse who reported directly to her. She locked Grandpa's medication in a safe for safety reasons. When I dropped by unannounced, she'd always meet me at the door. "Oh, sweetie, he's resting right now. Come back tomorrow." Tomorrow never seemed to come. I was working at a law firm in Charlotte then, often late hours. So I didn't see Grandpa as much as I should have. But every time I called, he sounded weaker, more confused. "Lydia's helping with the paperwork," he said once. "She's a bright girl." That was when I started to worry, because Grandpa never used to call anyone bright unless he meant dangerous. Meanwhile, Dad acted like everything was fine. He told me I was paranoid, that Lydia had things under control. But I could see it, the expensive suits, the sudden new car, the way he avoided eye contact when I asked about Grandpa's finances. I'd seen this pattern before, not in my family, but in the cases I handled. Gradual isolation, subtle manipulation, dependency disguised as care. I just never thought it would happen under my own roof. Then, one night, Grandpa called me from the landline. His voice shook. "Eliza, don't worry if something happens soon. The world's changing hands faster than you think." Before I could ask what he meant, Lydia's voice echoed faintly in the background. The line went dead. That was 3 days before the night when whispers slipped through the walls. When I learned what they truly meant by taking care of Grandpa. If I hadn't gone downstairs for water, if I hadn't heard Lydia's voice say those words, "By midnight, it's done," my grandfather would have been gone by morning. But destiny, or maybe justice, has a funny way of choosing its moments, and that night, it chose me. It was one of those nights when the whole house felt too quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your ears and makes you feel watched. I'd been buried in case files in my study, trying to ignore the unease that had followed me all week. Around 11:40 p.m., I finally got up to make tea. The hallway was dark except for the soft golden light spilling from the kitchen. That's when I heard Lydia's voice. At first, I thought she was talking to the maid or on the phone. But then another voice answered my father's. His tone was clipped, anxious. "It's ready." The sedatives mixed in. By midnight, it's done. Are you sure no one will suspect? I told you natural causes. The doctor already signed the prescription. Henry's old heart will do the rest. My skin turned cold. Henry. Grandpa. I pressed myself against the wall, barely daring to breathe. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I peeked around the corner. Lydia stood by the marble counter in her silk robe, the dim kitchen light glinting off a silver vial in her hand. My father leaned against the counter, face pale, running a hand through his hair. What if Eliza finds out? Lydia, smiling. She won't. She's working late again. Besides, she thinks we care about him. By morning, it's all over the will. The house, the company, everything will finally be ours. That was when I realized two things. One, they weren't just desperate. They were ready. Two, they were underestimating the wrong person. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone in my pocket. I hit record and leaned closer, just enough to capture every word. He trusted you, Lydia. And that's exactly why it worked. My stomach twisted. I wanted to scream, to burst into the kitchen and stop them right there. But I couldn't, not yet. If I did, they'd destroy the evidence, call me hysterical, twist the story. I knew how people like them operated. I'd defended enough liars in court to recognize the pattern, so I waited. When Lydia turned away to pour the medicine into a crystal glass, I quietly slipped down the hallway toward Grandpa's room. The heavy rain outside masked my footsteps. My fingers shook as I texted Martha, Grandpa's night nurse. Check his water glass. Do not let him take any pills. I'm coming. No reply. My mind raced. What if they'd already gotten to her? What if I was too late? The grandfather clock struck 11:59. I heard Lydia's heels click across the marble floor, then the slow creak of Grandpa's door opening. Time for your medicine, Henry. Just a sip. That's when I ran. The rain hammered the windows as I sprinted down the corridor, my heart slamming against my ribs. My father's voice called after her, Lydia, hurry up. But I didn't stop. By the time I reached the guest wing, Lydia was bending over Grandpa's bed, holding the glass to his lips. Stop, I shouted. The glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. Grandpa gasped awake, confused, terrified. Lydia's eyes widened as she saw me, phone in hand, the red recording light glowing in the dark. For a full, charged second, none of us moved. Then I smiled the same cold, careful smile she'd worn for months and whispered, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The next few seconds blurred together a storm of shock, fear, and pure instinct. Lydia froze, her mouth open, eyes darting between me and the glass shards at her feet. My father stumbled into the doorway behind her, still buttoning his shirt, his face pale as the moonlight spilling through the curtains. Father, Eliza, what the hell are you doing here? Stopping you before you kill him. The words cut through the air like lightning. Grandpa's frail hand clutched the blanket, his voice trembling. Grandpa, Thomas, what is she talking about? Father, Dad, please, she's hysterical. She's been overworked. Hysterical? Then what's this? I raised my phone. The red recording light blinked steadily. The sound of their whispers filled the room, every damning word they'd said in the kitchen, echoing back at them. Lydia's eyes widened in horror. You were recording us? From the start, she lunged for me, but I stepped back, and the spilled water sent her skidding. The silver vial rolled across the floor, stopping at Grandpa's trembling hand. He picked it up, squinting at the faded label. Grandpa horse. These aren't my pills. No, they're his. I nodded toward my father. His insurance policy. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The rain pounded against the windows. Then, Grandpa's voice. Weak but steady. Grandpa, get out, both of you. Father, Dad, please. Now. End quote. They left the room, Lydia's heels clicking like hammers on marble. I locked the door behind them and turned to Martha, who had appeared pale and shaking. Miss Eliza? The bottle? It's not from the pharmacy. It's from a private clinic. Can you keep him awake? Yes, but he's weak. I dialed 911, voice firm despite my trembling hands. Possible poisoning attempt, Bennett Estate, Riverwood Drive. While we waited, I sat beside Grandpa, holding his hand. His skin was cold, but his grip was strong. I always knew Lydia had ambition, but Thomas, he followed her lead. They both wanted control. Grandpa, control of what? You, the company, the estate, everything. His eyes watered, not from fear, but from heartbreak. Grandpa, I raised a coward and a viper. When the paramedics arrived, Lydia was nowhere in sight. My father paced the foyer, muttering excuses to no one. As they loaded Grandpa onto the stretcher, I handed one of the medics the vial. Test this. You'll find enough sedative to stop a horse. Lydia reappeared at the top of the stairs, makeup smeared, trembling with rage. You ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes, I just saved a man's life. The flashing red lights painted her face in shades of guilt and fury. My father tried to grab my arm as I followed the medics out. Father, Eliza, think about what you're doing. We're family. Exactly. That's what makes it unforgivable. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed what I already suspected. Grandpa would have died within an hour if he'd swallowed those pills. When I left his room, the storm outside had calmed. The air smelled of rain and endings. I looked at my phone. The recording's still safe. Time-stamped 11:47 p.m. Their deadline had come and gone. Grandpa was alive, and for the first time, I wasn't the one being watched. The storm outside finally died around dawn, but inside the Bennett estate, the tension only grew louder. By the time I got back from the hospital, the sky was bleeding orange over the horizon. The front door creaked open, and the smell of black coffee drifted through the foyer. My father and Lydia were in the kitchen, pretending to be the picture of calm. Lydia looked up first. Her hair was perfect again, her voice smooth as ever. Rough night, Eliza? You look pale. Not as pale as Grandpa would have looked if I hadn't stopped you. Her smile faltered. Dad's coffee cup froze midair. Watch your tone. You're making wild accusations. Wild? I prefer recorded. I placed my phone on the counter, the same counter where they'd whispered their plan just hours earlier. I didn't press play, not yet. I wanted to see how far they'd go to pretend. Lydia recovered first, always quick to spin a story. Oh, that silly recording? You're a lawyer, Eliza. You know better than anyone that things can sound misleading. Sure. Just like the wrong pills in Grandpa's room? Enough. Your grandfather is fine. Let's not turn this into a circus. He's fine because of me, and because I made a call last night. Their eyes met. For the first time, Lydia's confidence cracked. I turned toward the doorway. Detective Marcus Hale stepped in, his badge flashing against his dark jacket. He nodded to me, then looked straight at Lydia. Mrs. Bennett, you're up early. You wouldn't happen to recognize this number, would you? He slid a phone screenshot across the island, the message she'd sent around midnight. By midnight, it's done. Payment ready. Lydia's face drained of color. That's not that message isn't real. Then you won't mind if we verify with your service provider. I leaned back against the counter, crossing my arms. You were right about one thing, Lydia. By midnight, it was done, just not the way you planned. End quote. Marcus looked at me. We can arrest them now if you want, or... I shook my head. No, not yet. Let's make sure the story is airtight. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Eliza, you don't know what you're doing. You'll destroy this family's reputation. You already did that when you tried to destroy its founder. Lydia's voice sharpened, venomous and desperate. Lydia, you think anyone will believe you over us? You're just his spoiled granddaughter. Maybe, but spoiled granddaughters don't usually have police witnesses and voice memos of premeditated murder. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marcus gave me a look that said enough for now, and left to prepare the warrants. When the door shut, the silence returned heavy, suffocating. My father sank into a chair, head in his hands. Lydia stood still, staring at nothing. I walked toward the window, sunlight cutting through the rain-streaked glass. The reflection of my stepmother and father shimmered behind me, two people who'd spent their whole lives chasing power, only to lose it to the one person they never saw coming. Me softly. The plan's still happening, Lydia, just not for Grandpa. As I left the room, I could feel her eyes burning holes in my back. By the time the sun fully rose over the estate, the game had changed hands. Their plan wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine. By afternoon, the Bennett mansion was silent again. Too silent. Lydia and my father hadn't spoken to each other since morning. I could feel the tension vibrating through the marble floors. Grandpa was still in the hospital under watch, and I had just gotten a text from Detective Marcus. Evidence is solid. Just keep them calm until we move. But calm wasn't part of Lydia's vocabulary. I found her in the library, pacing in front of the fireplace, her silk robe replaced by a tailored suit, her armor. She turned as soon as I walked in. "You think you've won, don't you? You think recording a few words makes you powerful?" "No, Lydia. The truth makes me powerful." She laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You're just like him, your precious grandfather, always thinking people will play fair. That's why you'll lose." I crossed my arms, holding her gaze. "Me funny. He said the same thing about people who mistake greed for strength." For a moment, her mask slipped, eyes dark, mouth tight. Then my father entered, face drawn, clutching a drink like a lifeline. "Father, stop this. Both of you. Lydia, for God's sake, sit down." "Sit down? She's destroying everything we built." "You destroyed it the moment you tried to kill him." Dad slammed his glass onto the table. "Enough. You think you're some kind of hero, Eliza? You're tearing this family apart." "No, Dad. You tore it apart when you chose her over your own father." He froze. The firelight flickered across his face, revealing the cracks I'd refused to see for years. Weakness, fear, guilt. "Father," quietly, "you don't understand. He was never going to let go of control. I spent my whole life in his shadow." "So you decided to end him? That's your excuse?" "He would have done the same. Men like Henry Bennett never share power they have to be forced to." I took a step forward, my voice shaking but steady. "You think you're different? You married into a dynasty, Lydia. But you were never part of it. You just pretended until you saw your chance." Her face twisted. "You have no idea how hard I've worked for this family. The late nights, the caretaking, the lies I told to make him trust me. Lies aren't work. They're rot. And you planted every seed yourself." The air was electric, rage, betrayal, and the echo of a legacy cracking apart. Then Lydia did something I didn't expect. She smiled again. That same icy smile she'd worn the night before. "You think this recording saves you? You think the police will believe a spoiled girl over two adults? You're nothing, Eliza. You always were." I reached into my bag and pulled out a small black device, a backup recorder. "Then it's a good thing I didn't stop recording this morning." The light blinked red. Her smile vanished. "You set me up." "No, I gave you the chance to tell the truth. You chose the lie again." For a moment, her expression shifted from fury to panic. Then she turned to my father. "Thomas, say something. You're just going to let her destroy us?" He didn't answer. His eyes were glassy, defeated. He sank into the nearest chair, rubbing his temples. The sound of tires on gravel echoed outside. Lydia stiffened. Moments later, Detective Marcus Hale entered, flanked by two officers. "Lydia Bennett, Thomas Bennett, we need to ask you both to come with us." Lydia's face hardened. "This is absurd. You have no right." "We have your messages, your fingerprints on the vial, and your recorded confession. We have every right." She turned to me, her eyes burning with hate. "You'll regret this. You think your grandfather will thank you? You've exposed this family to ruin. Better ruined than rotten." Marcus nodded to the officers. They stepped forward, cuffing Lydia first, then my father. "Eliza, please, don't. I begged you to see what she was doing. You chose her anyway." He lowered his head. Lydia struggled, screaming as they led her toward the door. Lydia shouting, "He'll never forgive you. You'll end up just like him alone." I stood still until the police car disappeared down the drive, sirens fading into the distance. For the first time, I felt the house breathe. The poison was gone. Marcus lingered near the door. "Marcus, you did the right thing, Eliza. He's lucky to have you." "No, I'm lucky I heard them in time." He nodded and left me standing alone in the doorway. The rain had stopped, and the sun was rising again, painting the marble halls gold. I walked to Grandpa's study, the room that had always smelled like cedar and paper and old wisdom. On his desk lay an old chessboard, his last game, mid-match. I picked up a pawn, tracing its smooth surface. Grandpa's voice echoed in my mind. Sometimes the smallest piece changes the whole game. I smiled faintly. That night, I wasn't the queen or the knight. I was the pawn who turned the board. The news broke before noon. Every major outlet in Charlotte carried the same headline. Billionaire Henry Bennett survives alleged poisoning attempt by family members. The photo beneath showed the estate gates, flashing red and blue lights still reflected on the marble pillars. By evening, the story had gone national. Reporters swarmed the driveway. Helicopters circled overhead, and every neighbor who once waved politely at Sunday brunch now whispered behind their curtains. Inside, I sat alone at the kitchen island, the same place where I'd first heard their whispers. Only now, the voices were gone. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Colleagues from the firm, journalists, even family friends, everyone wanted a comment, but I had none. The only voice that mattered was my grandfather's. When I visited him at the hospital that evening, he looked frail, but calm. The moment I entered, he smiled faintly. "Grandpa, you always did have good timing. You always told me to listen carefully. And you did. You saved me." He squeezed my hand, his skin paper-thin but warm. "The police have everything, recordings, the messages, the pills. Lydia and Dad won't hurt you again. Grandpa, don't let bitterness hurt you either." He looked out the window, where the late sunlight slanted through the blinds. "Grandpa, I thought I was protecting this family by keeping control. Maybe I created the very hunger that destroyed it." "You didn't destroy it. They did." "Grandpa, maybe. But don't carry their guilt, Eliza. It's poison of another kind." I swallowed hard. For a moment, he didn't look like the man who'd built empires. He looked like a father who'd lost a son. The following week was chaos. Lawyers, depositions, endless phone calls. Lydia denied everything at first, claiming the recording was fabricated. But the lab confirmed the vial contained a lethal sedative mixed with heart medication, her prescription. The text messages from her phone sealed it. My father pleaded guilty to conspiracy and obstruction, taking a reduced sentence. Lydia fought harder, spinning stories of manipulation and mental instability, but the evidence was merciless. The hearing was brutal. I sat in the front row, listening as they replayed my recording in court. Lydia avoided my eyes. My father didn't. When the judge read the verdict guilty, he finally looked at me. For a split second, I saw the father I remembered from childhood, the one who taught me to ride a bike, who tucked me in after nightmares. But that man was gone long before that night. When the gavel fell, I didn't feel triumph, just a hollow kind of justice. Grandpa returned home 2 weeks later. The first thing he did was sit at his old desk, tear up his will, and write a new one. This time, no names, just principles. He created a trust in my name, not for wealth, but for integrity. "Grandpa, use it to protect, not punish. Promise me that." "I promise." The estate slowly came back to life. Reporters left, the gates stayed closed, and silence finally meant peace again. One evening, as I walked through the empty halls, I noticed the clock, the same grandfather clock that had struck midnight that night. The hands were still, frozen at 11:47 p.m., the exact moment I had pressed record. I smiled faintly. Maybe some moments aren't meant to move forward. They're meant to remind us when everything changed. The Bennetts had built an empire on money, but that night, I learned empires fall quietly. One whisper, one recording, one truth at a time. 6 months later, the Bennett estate no longer felt haunted. The marble floors still gleamed, the chandeliers still glittered, but the air was lighter, no more whispers, no more secrets. The security guards nodded when I passed. The staff smiled again. Grandpa had come home, and for the first time in years, he seemed at peace. He spent most mornings in his study, writing letters, sorting through old papers. I thought it was part of his healing, tying up loose ends after a lifetime of battles. I didn't realize he was preparing something for me. One cold February morning, I woke to the sound of his nurse calling my name. "Miss Eliza, it's your grandfather. He's gone." The world seemed to go silent again. I walked into his room, where the soft winter light touched his face. He looked peaceful, hands folded, eyes closed, a faint smile on his lips. the same way he used to smile when he checkmated me in chess. On the nightstand sat an envelope with my name written in his old-fashioned cursive. The ink had smudged a little, like he'd paused before sealing it. My hands trembled as I opened it. My dearest Eliza, you saved me not just from death, but from becoming something I feared, a man who forgot what mattered most. I spent decades building this empire, believing control could protect it, but you showed me that truth protects better than power ever could. The Bennetts don't need more wealth, they need honor. And you reminded me that honor still exists. I've left instructions with my lawyer. You'll find what you need in the old safe. Use it to build, not to punish. Remember, legacy is not what you leave to people, but what you leave in them. With love, Grandpa. Tears blurred the words. I pressed the letter to my chest and sank into his chair, the scent of cedar and ink surrounding me. Later that day, I found the safe he mentioned, the same one Lydia used to guard so obsessively. Inside was a small leather portfolio, a set of keys, and a flash drive labeled "For Eliza." The first file on the drive was a document transferring majority control of Bennett Financial Group to me. I stared at it in disbelief. Grandpa had quietly bought back the shares Lydia and my father once schemed for, consolidating them under his name again. Then, just before his death, he signed them over. But what stopped my breath wasn't the paperwork, it was the second file, an audio recording. I clicked play. His voice filled the study, steady and gentle. If you're hearing this, Eliza, I'm probably gone. Don't be sad, sweetheart. You did what no one else could. You reminded me that love and loyalty still belong in this family. I want you to know something. I always trusted you, even when I didn't say it, especially when I didn't say it. And I'm proud of you more than you'll ever know. I couldn't hold back the tears. I covered my mouth, listening to the final seconds of the message. Grandpa, take care of the Bennett name, but never let it own you. The world needs more people who know when to press record and when to forgive. The audio ended with a soft click, leaving the room impossibly quiet. That night, I sat by the fireplace, the letter and flash drive beside me. The fire crackled softly, painting gold light on the framed photos above the mantel. Grandpa, Dad, me as a child between them. So much had been lost, but something new had been born in its place. Not the empire Grandpa built, but the truth he left behind. And I realized then, he hadn't just left me wealth, he'd left me a compass. One that always pointed toward integrity. No matter how dark the night, a full year has passed since that night, since the whisper in the dark changed everything. And yet, sometimes, when the house grows too still and the clock hits 11:47 p.m., I still pause, listening, not for fear, but for reminder. Because that's when I learned who I truly was. The Bennett estate has become something new, no longer a fortress built on secrecy and wealth, but a home filled with light and purpose. I moved into Grandpa's old study, turned it into a foundation office. The Henry Bennett Trust now funds scholarships for young entrepreneurs from low-income families, people with ideas but no backing. Grandpa would have loved that. Bennett Financial is thriving too. I didn't take his title as CEO. I didn't need to. I appointed Janet Moore, a woman Grandpa once mentored, as the company's first female CEO. My role stayed behind-the-scenes policy, oversight, ethical governance, ensuring the company never forgets where it came from. Every Friday, I walk the same marble hallway where I once overheard betrayal. The light feels different now, warmer, softer. The ghosts of that night have faded into memory, replaced by laughter from the staff, music drifting from the kitchen, and the quiet certainty that peace has finally come home. But peace didn't mean forgetting. Some scars stay invisible but deep. My father wrote me from prison every few months. His letters were apologetic, reflective, sometimes desperate. For a long time, I couldn't bring myself to reply. Then one day, I did. Dad, I've stopped hating you. Hate keeps people like Lydia alive long after they're gone. I don't know if we'll ever be the same, but I hope you learn what Grandpa tried to teach all of us, that love without honesty is just control in disguise. Eliza. He wrote back once more, simple words on plain paper. I'm proud of you, kid. I wish I'd been more like you. That was the last letter I received. He's serving his time quietly now, away from the headlines, away from me, and that's enough. Lydia, on the other hand, didn't go quietly. She filed appeals, gave interviews, tried to twist her story into a tale of misunderstood love, but no one listened. Eventually, even the tabloids stopped printing her name. For someone who had built her life on control, being forgotten was the cruelest punishment of all. As for me, I found something unexpected peace and simplicity. I started teaching part-time at a community college, mentoring young women studying law. One of them asked me recently, "Miss Bennett, how do you know when to trust someone?" I smiled, remembering Grandpa's voice. "Watch what they do when they think no one's listening," I told her. "And if they ever whisper in the dark, make sure you're the one holding the recorder." She laughed, not knowing how literal that advice once was. Every Sunday, I visit Grandpa's grave on the hill overlooking the estate. I bring a single cup of black coffee, no sugar, just how he liked it. I sit there, reading him the week's letters from the scholarship students, stories of struggle, resilience, and hope. And every time I finish, I whisper, "We did it, Grandpa." The Bennett name means something again. The wind always picks up just a little then, rustling the grass, as if he's answering. At night, I sometimes walk through the halls before bed, the way I used to, when fear kept me awake. Only now, the silence feels sacred, not suffocating. The old grandfather clock has been repaired, its hands moving again, no longer stuck at 11:47. It chimes 12 times at midnight, clear and strong. And instead of trembling, I smile. Because midnight used to mean danger. Now it means rebirth. That's the funny thing about betrayal. It doesn't just destroy. It reveals. It strips everything false until only the truth remains, shining raw and undeniable. I once thought revenge was about winning. But standing there in the quiet house that almost became my grandfather's tomb, I finally understood. Justice isn't loud. It's patient. It's quiet. It's the strength to stand alone in the dark and wait for the truth to echo back. And sometimes, all it takes is one voice, one recording to turn midnight into morning.